Well, hi, everyone. Thanks for attending today's panel, Fresh Data, Fresh Perspective. I'm Matthew Papa. I'm SVP of Global Partnerships here at Captify. And for those of you that don't know who we are, Captify is the largest independent holder of consumer search data outside of Google. We use this very rich intent and sophisticated data set to power some of the world's largest brands, including Apple, Adidas, American Express, Disney, and Microsoft. And I am joined here today by three very esteemed guests and colleagues of mine. Nick Flood, Global Commercial Operations Director at Future PLC, Fiona Salmon, VP of Partnerships EMEA at Captify, and then Vincent Pelillo, President of Europe and International at Captify. Let's go ahead and do some quick introductions. If you could kind of tell the room what your role is at your respective organizations, and we'll start with you, Nick.
Hi everyone, so yeah, Nick Flood, so I head up the Global Revenue Ops division at Future Publishing. Future Publishing are a behemoth of a publisher nowadays, constantly acquiring brands to operate over 200 brands globally, attract hundreds of millions of users to our properties, and have a wide variety of diversified revenue mixes, including our world famous e-commerce proposition through Hawk, one of our internal products, but also through display, lead generation, and content solutions too. Future Publishing reaches 1 in 3 people in the UK and US and generates hundreds of millions of pounds in revenue. I've been with the business now for about 5 months and look after the ad ops, programmatic, and sales systems parts of the business.
Great. Thank you, Nick. Fiona?
Hi, everyone. I'm Fiona Salmon. I'm the VP of Partnerships EMEA at Captify. I'm responsible for onboarding data into our cloud to help us run very successful campaigns for the likes of the brands that Matt just talked you through. We reach about 2.2 billion users a month and record about 42 billion searches a month. So we work with publishers to help them make better use of their on-site search data.
Great. Vincent?
I'm Vincent. I'm running Europe at Captify, which consists of running our local offices, France, Spain, Italy, Australia, and running a team of fantastic salespeople covering international from London. And we are on a mission to adapt and to develop our company in all these markets.
Great. And again, thank you all so much for joining me today. I'm very excited about the topic of this conversation, which we're going to be covering a wide range of discussion points, but really the nucleus of this discussion today will be around access to fresh data and how the titanic changes that are coming to Adtech, both from the cookieless perspective, but as well as consent and privacy, are giving opportunities for the world's best media owners to adapt their first-party data strategies and work more collaboratively with both data companies and marketers alike. And really what this means for the next 5 to 10 years of data-driven marketing strategies, but also how the consumer engages with these key content providers across the open web. So that being said, I'll go ahead and kick us off with our first discussion topic, which is consumer behavior change. We've seen, obviously 2020 has been a hell of a year, and we've seen some very interesting shifts in the attention economy with user sessions exploding across the open web, obviously due to lockdowns and due to constraints in mobility, but also some major changes in the industry itself. We obviously have the cookie announcement from Google Chrome, but you're also seeing an acceleration of these same privacy changes and consumer guardrails from Apple and Mozilla and other device manufacturers and web browsers. I think what would be great to understand is, Nick, from the publisher side and from a large media owner such as Future that has a diversity of titles across both B2B and B2C, how are you engaging with your marketer clients and working in a second party way around data strategies, ways that you can bring valuable, contextual or addressability data to the marketers, first party needs as well?
Yeah, I think it's, first of all, the thing to really stress that there is a lot of change at the moment, and obviously a lot of change to come too. So I don't think there's ever been a time where so much regulatory or Adtech changes kind of hit publishers in terms of their preparation to trade fundamentally. But I think with that presents really good opportunity. So publishers for a long time, I think, have probably undervalued the high intent audiences that they attract to their sites. And it's only really been in the last kind of 3 to 4 years that publishers have really kind of taken note of that. And we've seen that with the kind of second range of next gen kind of DMPs that operate in real time to allow publishers to really monetize their audiences correctly at scale as well. So I think from Future's perspective, what we're particularly keen to do is make sure we leverage our high intent audiences because that's how we operate. We drive a lot of our audience through organic search, which we're particularly good at, into those kind of high value user journeys, and then go on to monetize. I think the thing that is very clear to me with the amount of change that's happening in the industry at the moment is that it's all about communication. So what we particularly like to do is make sure we're actually talking to some of our biggest clients and across the spectrum to make sure that we have capability to fulfill their needs. I think if anything that COVID's definitely taught me is that the amount of data out there is huge, but publishers and marketers want to be really specific with their targeting criteria. So the value of data as anything has actually increased, which is a great thing for publishers.
Yeah, I agree. And I think what you said something very interesting about how, publishers are now having the opportunity to kind of bring their first party data to the ecosystem to provide, greater understanding. And, one thing about all of this change that's occurred in ad tech and the communication behind it is, I think when programmatic really started to gain some steam, 8-9 years ago, it was the promise of automation. It was the promise of being able to buy at scale without having to communicate on, 50 different publishers if you were one single buyer. And that kind of worked its way through. And then the programmatic was designed to be a data-driven solution, allow the marketer to define the audience and buy specifically against that audience. And that had some value, but now that's starting to swing back towards the pendulum. It seems that, programmatic always overcorrects itself and then kind of starts to stabilize every 4 or 5 years. And I think COVID was a real accelerant to that. And, I know, Fiona, you've had experience working on both, the publisher, technology side, as well as at an actual publisher. And a lot of the conversations they used to have with brands around, kind of the reliance on data, right? The marketer has become a little bit punch drunk on the need to define the audience and buy exactly against that audience. How are you seeing these kind of strategies pivot slightly where they're a little bit more collaborative between the publisher, a tech provider like a Captify, or a tech platform like a Smart, and then the marketer itself?
I think it's true what Nick said is that, yes, marketers want to buy very specifically now. Data-driven marketing is allowing for that. The problem that most publishers face is scale. It's all very well knowing that you do reach a certain audience, but how do you scale that up in order to make it meaningful monetization for you? And it's working with second-party people like ourselves, but others on the market as well that have incredibly fresh data that you can leverage along with the first-party data that you already know in order to garner scale, in order to find hidden audience that do match the client's requests that you might not have considered into that segment before. I think that's where we'll start to see much more innovation through 2021.
And Vincent, from, you obviously do a ton of work with our agency and marketer clients. One of the things that we consistently hear from a message perspective is that there is obviously varying qualities of data, but scarcity of certain data attributes is obviously what kind of drives an increase in demand. And one of Captify's value propositions is that we have dynamic, real-time data that's obviously refreshed and clean. But it'd be great to understand how the marketers think about this type of dynamic data as part of their strategy, and ultimately how we support that.
Clearly, so you get the point here. The marketer has always been fancy for fresh and scalable data. What happened in the last month is that suddenly there was a massive push on the gas pedal, and we probably gained 2 to 3 years in 6 months in terms of new consumption, new habits, new way of using the web, of multi-devicing, of the journey of you as a user, from where you start to where you end, buying a product or subscribing to something or just consuming a content. So clearly, what's fun in that period, in that moment, is that we were having a lot of scarcity of data, and suddenly there are massive amounts of data coming on the market. And what's interesting for a company like us is we are here to extract this data, classify this data, make it available to be executed, and to, in a way, we are supporting our agency and brand market to reevaluate, re-experiment, I mean, with the freshness of our data, we can allow more flexibility, more testing, and more iteration on what you do. So I think the conjunction of this acceleration process and our capabilities to capture the essence of what the people are searching for is a pretty interesting situation right now. And we are more than ever a very consistent partner for our agency community, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was Lenin said that nothing can happen for decades, and then in weeks, decades can happen, right? Like that certainly has been the story of 2020. And I think in our industry, we're a pretty good canary in the coal mine for these types of accelerants. So, you know, a big part of my job is to understand how Captify's data asset fits into the overall, you know, first party data strategies for both the marketers and the publishers, to kind of sit in this, like, you know, interesting space within the business that allows us to explore how the uniqueness of our search data can act as connective tissue. And I think one of the, you know, with all the hype around the cookieless, you know, changes and the Chrome ITP world, and, you know, having to move to a first party data ecosystem, one of the things that has gotten lost in the shuffle a little bit was we had made great advancements as an industry in the discussion around second party data, the way that data companies or identity providers, in this case, you know, the publisher's first party identity, can come together to create these very unique second party segments, which I've really always defined as taking an anchor, in this case, identity. So it could be a publisher first party cookie or addressability or authenticated user, and then enriching that identity with additional identity signals. In our case, you know, search intent signals. In the marketer's case, it could be their own first party data or their own defined audience. But that kind of cohabitation of data, I believe, is what's going to drive a stable and open identity and data ecosystem in the future. Nick, how is your business thinking about that type of second party, you know, data makeup as part of your overall strategy, and how to commercialize it?
Yeah, I think you're right. Actually, like second party data agreements, no one really talks about them, which is a bit weird. So it's either first or third, isn't it? But yeah, they've been around for ages. And I think if publishers find clients or agencies that are willing to go down to that route, then it provides a lot of value. And that there's been a lot of innovation in this space because, you know, driven by regulatory changes, of course. And I think, you know, GDPR took it so far. But if you think about a cookieless world and how advertisers and publishers can work better together in collaboration, then they're going to have to start joining their data together. That's how you're going to get the results that they ultimately require. So obviously you guys are in this space, but if you look at the wider industry, you've got amazing companies like Infosum, you know, raising serious amounts of cash to, of course, enable that second party, you know, clean data arrangement and transfer, which I think is really important. It's the privacy compliant way to share that data and then act on it is where ultimately we will make more money, because ultimately we should be able to better target or identify where we've got opportunities to grow our audience to reach the kind of individuals that the marketers want to. So it's been an absolute ton of change, but I definitely would like to see more people talk about second party. And it's not just limited to advertiser publisher either. It's publisher and publisher working together. So I'm aware of you know, certain certain agreements that I've been involved in over the course of my career, where actually individual publishers with specific sets of data have come together to win certain clients, where they kind of complement each other. I think publishers have just got better at that, actually working together, because obviously there's a lot going on, and this year in particular has been pretty tough.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up a great point, right? So like Ozone, I think is a great example of publishers coming together to provide both shared data assets, identity assets, as well as inventory assets to achieve the scale, but also the ease of buying that, the walled gardens have perfected over the last, decade and a half. And, we kind of look at them as a good bellwether for if we can make this succeed. I think that, this is going to be a very interesting 24 months, if the publishers are willing to get together and create systems and processes that allow for ease of data flow in this capacity to kind of create these second party segments, and think about additional data as more of a signal of identity rather than being just that identity, right? Like it's going to be more of a mosaic of data moving forward than what has been defined by one party or another. Fiona, are you seeing that, that there's a demand for this type of second party data? Who do you think really solves this kind of need and allows us to paint, a little bit more of a colorful picture that achieves, I think, what we're accomplishing today in traditional programmatic channels, but in a world where we have to start thinking about the end user's privacy and consent as well?
Yeah, I think it completely depends upon the KPI that you're trying to prove out, right? So you've either got a use case in hand that's coming direct from a client and it's being pushed that way, and it's pushing either publishers to be working together or publishers to be working with more second party data vendors. So that's the thing that is always key to think about at every single partnership, if you like. We do have an InfoSum bunker. We're seeing a lot of interest in it. It opens up a lot of conversations as well for me and my team to be having with regards to even just doing some simple physical matching to see where the overlaps are, where we and the publisher can learn more about our users. It's super helpful. Like you said, they're raising big money at the moment, and InfoSum is certainly here to stay and challenging quite a lot of the sort of ecosystem as it has been up until now, I think. DMPs, for example, are going to be really challenged by this kind of tech. And I think it's a really good step forward for the ecosystem. Very for a big coming together.
Yeah, I think that, what's clearly obvious is that we're all agreeing that, maybe the world of one-to-one targeting is never going to be the way that it is today because of the control that is afforded to participants in that ecosystem and how they create that one-to-one targeting under their own technology. And that will largely now be mitigated by more, agreed upon, metrics, or I'm sorry, more agreed upon attributes that need to be accomplished. Vincent, are you seeing, like, I feel like these conversations have to be coming up across the continent in terms of, these are challenges, right? These are challenges that are going to come through to attribution and to measurement and to tracking. Are you seeing these conversations starting to populate now? And, how are you thinking about ways to accommodate the needs for performance when there may be some sort of deprecation in terms of defining an audience, inherently how a marketer wants it?
First of all, if I can come back to the second party data discussion, which I think is absolutely key. I mean, I think I agree very much with Nick. Nobody is talking enough about it, and it's a bit weird because if you think about it, today probably the vast majority of the data which is used is not first party, second party in reality. It's the result of enrichment of multiple systems, multiple different clusters merged together, etc., etc. Many things that are happening in the back office that nobody is seeing. So, I mean, what is interesting here is that we went from, I mean, we had this GDPR stuff, which really opened up the dance. Then we had this lockdown situation pretty much everywhere, increasing the volume of usage and by consequence the volume of data. And now we have this cookieless process, thanks to the Google guys, which are forcing the entire ecosystem to completely reinvent the way we are looking at a user or a group of users. And what's super interesting is that we're going to go, we were probabilistic 10 years ago, then deterministic, then we go back to probabilistic again. But we go back probably in, let's say, enhanced and smart probabilistic fashion. This is my hope. What I mean by that is that you have the context on one hand, you have the ID or the user on the other hand. And I think what's ultra positive and interesting is that we're going to have to bridge both things together. The best targeting will be the best targeter will be the one capable to address reach and scale. Advertising doesn't change. The goal is the same for everybody, is to make sure you can target the right user in the best possible context. So the good news and what's interesting here is that second party data is going to solve the problem. So we're going to have to work all together. That's an opportunity for everybody. That's going to force us to be more tech and a little bit less service. There are plenty of very good things. To come back to the measurement of the question, which is probably the stress that a lot of players, as always, they're going to readapt. Everybody is going to readapt. Nobody has they don't have the choice. So we at Captify, where we're going to participate with them in that journey, is that we're going to make sure that by using any of the different solutions available through IDs with second party partners or through Google, their Chromium, their cohorts, whatever type of options we're going to activate, we're going to try and put some Captify data and connect some Captify data as broadly as we can. And as a result, we should get to a situation where mechanically the volume of performance and conversion for the brands are increasing if they target the right audiences. Now the question will be, how are they going to measure this? Are they going to do like they do for TV, for example? They're going to use panels, they're going to use control groups, they're going to use, it's the revival of the marketing of the 90s, is that we're going to reintroduce new and intelligent way to do things that we were doing since a long time. So I'm this market as a resilience capability, which is pretty interesting to observe since 50 years now. The madmen are not dead. So I think we're going to support all these guys who are going to have to change their measurement, which would mean their way to work, which will mean their internal process, which would mean the way they agree with the client of what is performance. And I think we're going to participate actively to that.
Matt, can I just add a point onto that actually? So I think what's really interesting about it all is just the ease of buying. So it really has to start with the buyer, and as long as you can provide scaled solutions that work, then you're in a good place. So it's my prediction that with everything that's happening, privacy and otherwise, that there will be a bit more of a switch back to trusted first-party rich environments like premium publishers who can provide the conversion data, provide the measurement in more detail through these kind of second and first-party relationships, because that's ultimately what the buyers are going to want. So if anything, I think the long tail might struggle a little bit, but really the opportunity is to move cash into that first and second party world. But it's pivotal, absolutely, that whatever is the ultimate solution, ID wise or otherwise, that it's scalable. I mean, I think in the last couple of weeks, there's probably been 10 to 15 different ID vendors have now launched a new ID. We're starting to see clients launch ID solutions with Verizon as well the other day, and of course they're set on so much rich data and across TV as well. So it's going to be interesting where we get to by the end of next year in terms of how IDs work, and I'm really hoping that ultimately someone will come forward and start to position a more interoperable ID solution that works across the industry, because ultimately that's, I think, what it's going to require to maintain yields, which is of course what everyone's really worried about.
Yeah, I
There
think
will be a massive amount of job for developers and people working on platform integrations in the next 12 months to make all these guys work together. That's going to be a pretty manic next 12 months on the engineers hiring market.
We're gonna have a ID Lumiscape pretty soon. I'm sure Terry will create
I'm sure one exists already. It's got to.
Yeah, well, it should now. After the pre-bid ID, the Verizon ID, and you brought up a great point. Publishers that are thinking about have been thinking about this type of data strategy to be a little bit more unique in their offering. Folks like yourself at Future. I think News Corp, News UK does a very good job of this. I think Washington Post here in the States has some pretty sophisticated technology, right? That is what's going to separate the wheat from the chaff in terms of the publisher landscape. And a lot of folks have been talking about, what do we do for the mid to long tail folks? And something like a pre-bid open ID or a Trade Desk unified ID does create, a rising tide lifts all boats scenario, because it gives them access to it. We're not just, carving this out for, the premium publications, and it gives an opportunity for these premium media owners like, the New York Times and the Washington Post and folks that want to have a subscription, world to have a subscription world, and then provide a little bit back to the open web that they wouldn't have access to in the terms of addressability. And I think what you brought up a good point, Vincent, talking about probabilistic data, which I think unfortunately has been somewhat of a dirty word in media for the last few years, just because we became so enamored with the deterministic front. Fiona and I have been working on bringing Captify's Sense platform to market, which provides probabilistic modeling rooted in deterministic identification. Fiona, I think it'd be great for you to just kind of give your perspective on how this product is going to, shed some interesting light on data and consumer activity around search, for Captify's publisher partners and other and marketers as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've worked within probabilistic data for the last few years, in fact, but probabilistic data is really only good if it's coming from a really good set of seed data. And coming from 42 billion searches a month is good seed data, right? It's very rich, it's very fresh, and it's very broad reaching. So to be able to, help publishers learn more about their audiences when they're off of their owned and operated sites is going to give huge benefits. And I'm really looking forward to the launch of that. We'll be launching it in January. Give me a shout if you're interested in learning more. We had some recent press releases go out this week. And yeah, the scope there is massive, absolutely massive.
Great. It's going to be an exciting time. And speaking of time, we're almost up to it. So I want to, we don't have any Q&A come through. I'll give 15 seconds if anyone wants to ask a quick question, and may be able to just pop this in. But I'd love to go around the horn and hear any predictions that you may have for 2021, or anything that excites you or that you think is coming down as well. We'll start with you, Vincent.
Oh, prediction. I mean, you're asking me the most difficult question still in this COVID. So I think the market is going to regrow. So I don't know if I am against the majority of what the people are thinking, but I think it's going to be 21 will be a better year. I think we're going to go probably back in at the level of 2019 or even higher, especially on some specific verticals. I wouldn't surprise you that if I tell you that the travel is dead, but not only dead for 21, it's dead probably for 2 or 3 years. So the entire market has probably to resign on the volume of money and budget this was generating. And I predict that the companies that are not doing tech, that are doing, let's say, commoditized tech, will probably be very difficult to survive. In one.
Yeah, I know it's a bold prediction, and something I think that economic trends are certainly speaking to that deprecation in the travel industry, and they're going to be hurting for quite some time. Fiona, 2021 predictions.
Quick one from me. I think publishers will want to continue growing their first-party data strategies, continuing to push forward with subscriber strategies and logged-in users, so they can understand their users better and better and better. I also think they'll continue to buy rather than build ad tech.
Fair. Nick?
I definitely hope we're going to fly again next year, by the way, Vincent. That prediction makes me very sad. I think there'll definitely be a continuation of diversification for publishers. So publishers will spread their risks, I think, across different revenue sources. But also, I think within the ads world, I think it's going to be all about IDs ultimately, and how publishers can connect their high value intent data to those IDs to continue to generate a decent yield of those users.
And we have one question that came through, which I'll go ahead and quickly answer, and then I'll give my prediction, which is, how does mobile location data look as an up and coming value for agencies, and will MAIDs replace cookies? I think the answer to that question is mobile location data is important. It's established its value in the market today already. I think there's been a lot of providers who have come into that space and have pivoted to kind of a hybrid mobile location data and footfall attribution partner. And then no, I do not think MAIDs will replace cookies. I think MAIDs are probably going to go the same route as the cookie. I mean, Apple has already seemingly dealt a pretty significant blow, even though they've delayed the IDFA opt-in. Let's be candid. The 25% of iPhone users are some of the most desirable people you want to advertise to anyways, which limiting that identifier is going to have a major impact on the value of advertising in the mobile app space. But I think the mobile app community operates slightly different than the way the open web community does. So I don't necessarily see it as maybe being as seismic of a shift as the cookie is. The cookie allows for a lot of control. There's still a lot of work that you have to do inside of the MAID ecosystem. And my prediction for 2021 is that a DSP is going to buy an SSP in the effort to consolidate and create efficiency around that supply chain. And I think it's going to be someone like a MediaMath or an Amobi who is looking for a way to elevate themselves. I think the $38 billion market cap on the trade desk has got a lot of people interested. I think we might see some private equity or SPAC money come in and take somebody like a MediaMath and potentially consolidate with them with someone like a Magnite or an index exchange to create some efficiencies of scale there. That's my prediction for 2021, a little bit more finite. And I will be getting back on a plane next year, so you can put that in your journal. So, that puts us at time. I'd like to thank all of you for joining me. I thought it was a really lively conversation. We covered some interesting topics. If you did join us today and you have any questions, find us on LinkedIn or email us. We'd love to talk to you further. We appreciate you coming and participating today. And thanks so much to the folks at Smart for allowing us to participate in the Winter Adtech virtual event. This has been great. And we look forward to seeing you all in person very soon, and hopefully at our villa at Cannes in 2021. Take care, everyone, and have a great week.